Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get started here in just a minute, but I would like to invite everyone, if you don't have something to write with or write on, please grab something. There's a good chance we will be doing some mindfulness activities that involve drawing today. So go ahead and grab a pen or a pencil and something to write on, piece of paper. You're welcome to use an iPad if you want to use a digital drawing tool as well. Um, yeah, and we'll just get started here in just a moment. All right, I'm going to just jump in. Welcome again. I'm going to go ahead and start by just introducing the Family Institute. We are a research, education, and clinical services community, and the Family Institute of Northwestern University. It's one of the nation's leading relationship-based behavioral health organizations. We're committed to strengthening and healing children, adolescents, couples, families, and individuals. And behind each clinician at the Family Institute is a collaborative team of over 100 clinicians who engage in continuous learning, consultation, information sharing, and providing effective referrals. We offer teletherapy and in-person therapy in our offices in Chicago, Evanston, Northbrook, and Westchester. And for those who cannot afford therapy, we offer high quality counseling services through our Betty D. Harris Family and Child Clinic. The clinic is staffed by outstanding graduate level therapists in training. I was one of those. I don't know about outstanding, but I was a graduate level therapist in training at the Family Institute. And they're educated and supervised by renowned therapists. I just want to give that overview. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself, and then I'll have Karla introduce herself. If you maybe have already noticed, we are going to be doing a fairly informal conversation about mindfulness and cultivating calm. So we'll just kind of roll with that. And after we've introduced ourselves, we'll give a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, and then just sort of dive right in. And at any point, please drop some questions into our Q&A. So yeah, I'll introduce myself. My name is Caroline Callahan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist at the Family Institute. And I mainly work at the behavior, mindfulness and behavior therapies branch of the Family Institute with Karla. So we are actually in the same, housed under the same department at the Family Institute. And I work with families, I work with children, adolescents, and couples. And I really enjoy doing dialectical behavior therapy with both individuals and adolescents. And DBT uses a lot of mindfulness, so that's a huge part of my practice. My clinical interests include identity development, relationship challenges, family of origin work, queer concerns, life stage transitions. And I always enjoy bringing my sense of humor when appropriate into my sessions. And yeah, I also just love collaborating with my clients and making effective change in our lives. So I'll hand it over to Karla to introduce yourself.
Oh, thanks so much, Caroline, and thanks for that warm welcome and introduction of the Family Institute. And welcome everyone who's signing in. My name is Karla. As Caroline said, she and I are both housed under the Mindfulness and Behavior Therapies team here at TFI. I myself am a licensed clinical professional counselor, and in my clinical work, I like to offer a vulnerable space that empowers clients to become stakeholders in their physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and relational wellness, instilling hope, validation, compassion, and empathy in my clients' narratives are ongoing portions of my whole person centered care. I've also had additional training in mindfulness through UC San Diego's Mindfulness Based Professional Training Institute. And I'm also a qualified teacher of MBSR, which stands for Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction. So teaching and integrating mindfulness into my clinical work and also workshops here at TFI really integrates a lot of my passion for increasing present moment awareness and discovery of our own innate human resilience.
Awesome. Thanks, Karla. All right, so the sort of format of this conversation is we're gonna really have just a conversation for the next around 40 minutes. And we'll leave
Mhm.
the last 15 minutes of our talk. So around 12:45, we will wrap up the conversation and then open it to questions. So we'll spend the last 15 minutes answering any questions that you all might have based on what we're talking about. And our conversation is going to focus around three main questions. Why mindfulness? Why is this such an important practice to cultivate? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the what. So what actually is mindfulness? What are some of the practices that you can bring into your everyday life? And then we'll get to the how, and we'll hopefully have some time to guide you in some mindfulness practices that we use frequently.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if you have some tea, something to drink, join Caroline and I. We've got our mugs here. I'm really happy to dive into this conversation with you today, Caroline, and particularly with the why. Like, why is mindfulness so important right now? Like, really, why is even talking about cultivating a sense of calm and inner peace really essential right now in our country, with our communities, within our families? So, yeah, I would love to just talk about that with you for a bit, the
Yeah.
importance of this.
Yeah, I think that one thing that always pops into my head when I think about cultivating my own sense of inner peace and calm is that it is a radical act because just that when I look at the news or when I'm thinking about what's happening in our world, there's so much pain, suffering, challenge, and that finding that sense of calm, that centered place of calm, almost
Mm,
sometimes feels like it is an impossible task because
mm,
especially as somebody who just feels so much empathy for folks going through challenging events that I just want to be in that space with them. But that cultivating a sense of calm is so challenging, but also so essential. It's a place where I can actually access my most balanced self and also
mhm.
be able to actually intervene in the ways that are is possible for me as an individual.
Right, right. I love that you're really naming that, how it can be kind of a challenge to get to that centeredness, Caroline. Um, and how I hear it from you, it makes me think of my own practice. It for myself, it really gives me some sense of like groundedness and also some sense that I feel empowered in my day, right? Like I have some choice and freedom in how I'm responding to the multiple events that are going on around me, that I have access to, whether I'm choosing that accessibility, right? If I'm scrolling through the news or something just pops up on my phone that I maybe didn't ask for. And then just noticing my own body's reaction, my own thoughts, and then how I feel. I feel like it helps me to just come back to this place where I can choose my intention of how I want to feel through the day, and also how I want to empower and equip myself just to maybe get through this moment that might feel really difficult.
Oh yeah, I love that. That like cultivating calm and having that sense of mindfulness is connected to your own sense of agency as a person. Like it
Yeah,
gives you choice in your life.
right.
And one thing that I've been sort of grappling with and just becoming more and more aware of is just how our attention is pulled in so many different directions. Um,
Hmm.
just that whether it's social media or the news or just, how we get information, that we
Hmm.
are always under this constant information overload. And I just read this book. It's a novel. It's called Wellness, and it has a quote in there that I like hunted down because I was like, "Oh, this quote is so good." And the quote is, "Information overload is the new hungry lion." So it's the
Hmm.
idea that back when we were early humans, that our nervous systems would spike with stress when we maybe spotted danger on the horizon, a hungry lion out there prowling around. But
Hmm.
that was not a constant occurrence. Maybe it was a daily occurrence. I don't know how frequently lions were out there. But right now in our current society, that information overload is almost constant, and
Right,
that nervous systems aren't used to being under constant activation, and that it is so, so important to have a sense of control over how to regulate that part of ourselves, to sort of understand that the chronic stress that we are under is something that we can work on. And that in part means shutting off the flow of information to our brains, but also cultivating the sense of calm and using mindfulness to do that.
Right, right, right. No, I love that quote. I might have to add that to my own little little booklet of quotes that I collect. But to your point, right, our bodies were not meant to be in this like sense of like hyperactivity all the time. It really was designed for like that sudden stress, and then we could go into like our rest and digest cycle. And so, um, I love what you said, Caroline, about having that choice to either cut off the flow of information or just maybe notice how I'm even responding or reacting to it here in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just always grappling with that reality of just the chronic stress that we are all under and that we all experience, and that it is there's so many ways to work on it, and yet it is also so hard because it becomes this cyclical thing that the
Mhm.
more we experience stress, the more challenging it is to intervene on that stress, to work on that stress. And some of
Mhm.
the implications of that is chronic pain, chronic health issues, interpersonal issues, some things that are just so challenging and prevalent right now in our world.
Right, right, right. And even noticing how stress informs the way we might communicate with one another too. So if you're maybe going through your day like somewhat on autopilot, right, with all of these feelings and all of these thoughts and maybe urges, um, you might be speaking or showing up in your relationships very differently, right? Because you've been kind of your mind has been kind of maybe in this like loop that you're maybe unaware of, and just reacting off from. So, like some of those verbal urges are helpful to notice as well, and how they might impact the health of our relationships too.
Yeah, and this is a really good segue into some of well, before we get into some of the concrete benefits of mindfulness, let's make sure we're defining our terms. So, yeah, I know, Karla, you have a really good sense of this through your MBSR training. So, yeah, can you share like how would you define mindfulness?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different definitions out there, right? One that really sticks with me is it's really this practice of being present within the moment and noticing it in a non-judgmental way, right? So I'm bringing an intentional awareness just to where I am in this moment right now without attaching like any judgmental language to it. And when I say judgments, it's things that I might like or dislike, what I want or I don't want. It has somewhat of this neutrality to it. And I'm just noticing and observing it for what it is. Um, and so just and it's really an intentional practice. I see it as this way of living this somewhat of an awakened lifestyle. Mentioning that autopilot before, some of us may have experienced whether we're driving somewhere, maybe just going through our house, and you realize, oh, how did I get here? Maybe what did I walk in this room for? And some of us are just kind of going through the motions of the day, but without this like intentional presence to it. I'm just floating through, right? I'm kind of just being guided by, you know, my habits, what has become now habitual. And my mind is sometimes very disconnected from where my body is showing up physically. Um, and so just to kind of segue off from there too, just bringing up a little bit of like historical context, and thinking of some of the origins of mindfulness, we can look back through history when we look at some of the early religious or philosophical teachings in Hinduism and Buddhism. And some of those teachings span well over 4,000 years ago. So, quite a long time. Mindfulness has been around throughout the generations. And so, when we look at today's mindfulness, we can see it show up more so in secular settings. And there's been a lot of pioneers like John Kabat-Zinn and Sharon Salzberg, who have really taken mindfulness and been able to integrate it into clinical settings like hospitals, into public schools, academic institutions, so that can be taught really as a skill and also somewhat of a lifestyle that we can adapt into.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. That's the definition that I feel like I work off of most often is that present awareness of and without judgment. Yeah. Emotional
Mhm.
awareness without judgment. And I did find another one that I want to share that I really love. It's from looks the paper is called Mindfulness, a Proposed Common Factor. And just for folks that are listening, common factors talk is sometimes used in a therapeutic setting to think about like what are the factors that actually help clients change and feel better. And so this author is talking about like perhaps mindfulness is one of those common factors that is a thread
Mhm.
connecting all psychotherapy, something that is helpful in psychotherapy. And just yeah, like we are that present awareness we are cultivating in our sessions. But let me tell you this before I just go off on tangents. Let me share this quote. So this author defines mindfulness as a state of psychological freedom that occurs when attention remains quiet and limber without
Mhm.
attachment to any particular point of view.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, I love that.
You know, what I love about that is the sense of freedom, because I think when you were talking about like the why mindfulness, like that autonomy, that like opportunity to choose how you react or respond. And then I also love quiet and limber.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes when I'm cultivating a sense of mindfulness, like that's kind of what I'm feeling, like a sense of agility where I'm just sort of like gently not getting too attached to any one thing. I'm just sort of gently focusing.
Right. Oh, I love that. Please share these quotes with all of us, Caroline.
So that's yeah, that's one that I have been really thinking about a lot these last few days
Mhm.
preparing for this. Yeah.
Lovely.
So yeah, let's as we're sort of talking about the definition of mindfulness, kind of like the what is it? Yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the benefits. We've already touched a little bit on that in the why, but maybe we can go into a little bit more detail.
Mhm. No, that would be great. I'd love to start off with some of the evidence-based research that's out there. A lot of this was the research and studies I've done have been around mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, which John Kabat-Zinn developed in the late 70s, which was originally intended for treating patients with chronic pain and it created a space of awareness for those clients and patients to notice the automatic reaction they were having to their own physical health, right? So even as I'm sharing about this for those who are listening, if the relationship you share with your body, we can sometimes accept certain parts of our physical selves, and then there's other parts of us that we might reject or have a lot of frustration with. So, like noticing what comes up automatically when you think just about the body that you exist in, right? And so within this program, and then research that's been done, they notice how practicing formal meditation over a series of 8 weeks in MBSR it really showed improved quality of sleep, changes in cognition, improving one's clarity, also improving one's immune system. When we're constantly in that fight or flight, our immune system naturally suppresses itself because we don't need it when we're fighting lions or tigers, Caroline. So, but if your immune system never really gets back to that baseline, so to speak, it can stay consistently suppressed. And this is why in our society, there are some communities that are more inclined to illness, right? Because there might be actual threats, right, to life or livelihood that are ongoing. And so, but those are just some of the main benefits, kind of based on the research that is out there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll just add to that. one thing that I often talk about when I talk about the benefits of mindfulness is I always do this. I always make this motion because to me, a lot of what mindfulness does is it creates space between your automatic thoughts, reactions, even your automatic internal experiences and how you react and respond. So sometimes when we're in this very stressed space or when we're maybe struggling to practice mindfulness, something happens and we react almost immediately.
Mhm.
Cultivating a sense of mindfulness or creating a sense of calm slowly widens that gap over time. And where you really can get to this point where something happens and you feel this sense of like, oh, wow, here I am and I have this opportunity. I have this opportunity to decide how I react. And this I see is really, really helpful, especially in lots of contexts, but especially in those interpersonal contexts where
Mhm.
perhaps it's in a relationship when there's, you're struggling with increased conflict and you're trying to figure out how to intervene in your own conflict cycle and just having
Mhm.
that mindful awareness of
Right.
like, oh, when this happens, I feel a spike of frustration. And I can actually just give it a moment and I can wait until that frustration ebbs a little bit and then I can decide how I want to respond. And so mindfulness can be very, very helpful in slowing down your arguments and letting you um, get a little bit of space for yourself to think about how you want to make yourself to explain yourself in a different way or to respond differently. So that's
Mhm.
a big one that I really appreciate.
I love that. I love that. You bring to mind, Caroline, one of my favorite teachers, um, describes mindfulness as being on this like two-lane highway. And there's maybe one exit every like 100 miles. But the more space of awareness I can create, I can actually create more exits off from this highway. Yeah, I don't have to wait until the next 100 to get off. I can notice, like you're saying, that slowing down piece. I don't have to go on the urge within my body, the urge with whatever I'm feeling, whether I feel frustration, if I'm feeling disappointed about something, or even really afraid. That doesn't have to inform my decision. I don't have to embody it necessarily. I can just notice it and maybe offer some space to validate why I'm feeling the way that I do, right? And then choose wisely what to do next with
Yeah.
that information.
You're just so elegantly describing emotion regulation. Like emotion regulation is not getting rid of or not experiencing emotions. It's experiencing the emotion, recognizing it for what it is, feeling how it feels in your body, and then reacting in a way that best serves you, what's most effective for you. That's all. That's I think maybe one of the strongest bodies of evidence around mindfulness is in the emotion regulation category.
Mhm.
So much of what we're talking about is connected to that and all in that umbrella.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to give you a few more buzzwords for other benefits of mindfulness, improve concentration and mental clarity. I think that again, with that information overload, when our attention is being pulled in a million different ways, we have to mindfully practice and train our minds to have focus on a task.
Mm.
So one thing that I do that helps with this is like I think it's called the Pomodoro technique, where you just set a 20-minute timer and just like try and focus on one thing at a time. And that actually trains your brain to have a little bit more attention and clarity around certain tasks. So that's a good one. Let me make sure I'm affect tolerance, which is really just tolerating painful experiences and emotions.
Mhm.
Objectivity. So again, that experience of like, can I sort of separate myself from my own reactions and seek understanding of others? So empathy for sure as well. Acceptance, compassion, kindness. So many wonderful benefits.
Can I add to that, Caroline, and thinking about mental health? Um, Through some of the research, they've also shown that practicing mindfulness routinely can also help to reduce symptoms related to depression and anxiety. When we think about that fight or flight and that information overload, as you're saying, those stress hormones, when they're active, they continue to flush through our body's system. And our brains are also getting those waves of stress hormones, as well as a lack of oxygen. When we're stressed or feeling like I have to fight or flee, our heart rate increases and that changes the pace of our breathing too. So when our brains are not getting that oxygen that it needs over a long period of time or over what you might consider chronic stress, that can actually add to areas of depression and anxiety, for some folks in the world. So when you're able to activate more of like that deep belly breath, and get more closely into that rest and digest, that can certainly support a lot of those symptoms related to some of those mood disorders. Mm-hmm.
That is really cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, yeah, I'm going to mention one quick thing real quick is also I've been learning a little bit about placebo effect and how they're starting to think that placebo effect, which is the medical phenomena where when some people are given a medically inert or biologically inert substance, they actually experience symptom relief. Um, and so the placebo effect is really interesting, and some of the thinking around it is that actually our brains and nervous systems have the ability to heal certain things, and often this is most effective with like what we were talking about before, chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
The question then becomes is if we have this potential, why don't we do it? And again, it's like energy resource. If we are constantly under stress, our body's not going to divert resources to healing this chronic pain because it's not a high priority.
Yeah.
Whatever is causing the chronic stress, dealing with that, it becomes the high priority. And so
Mm-hmm.
cultivating mindfulness actually helps you access these parts of your own nervous system that are self-healing, that are self-correcting. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just jumping off of what you said around how it can help with a wide variety of different physical and mental health conditions and the interaction between those two as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This might be a good moment, Caroline, to maybe pause, um, and maybe go through a practice. I know you had mentioned having a pen or paper. I also have a practice in mind, but yeah, maybe
Yeah,
we
why
could
don't
try
you
one.
jump in? Yeah, you start with one.
Okay, so why don't we, for those listening and following along, I'd like to just guide us in just a very short awareness of breath practice. When we think about our breath, or actually, let me start. Many times we're not thinking about our breathing. It runs on our autonomic nervous system. So it's one of those things that just happens automatically, and we really don't have to give much thought to, particularly if you are able bodied or tend to have good health. Your breathing is just something that happens and reoccurs on its own. So the intention of being mindful of your breath, it can really give a great deal of information to maybe how you're going throughout the day. So why don't we just take a moment to pause here? So where you are in your seat, just maybe embracing an open posture for a moment. So maybe rolling back the shoulders a few times if you want to unloosen your neck a little bit. This tends to be the area where we hold a great deal of stress and tension throughout the day. Maybe wring out your wrists a bit. If you tend to sit at the computer, as many of us do, and also find a comfortable place for your feet on the ground. So this posture where we have our shoulders back, our back straight, and it really creates this like dignified posture where we can be open to receiving, right? And it can be the start of creating this calming presence, and bringing awareness to just your breathing. And so you're welcome to close your eyes or just lower them if that's comfortable for you. But just gently noticing where is my breath in my body? Am I noticing it maybe along my nostrils or upper lip? Am I noticing my breath in the back of my throat? Perhaps I can notice my breath in the gentle raise of my shoulders. Is my breath somewhere centered within my chest and lungs? Or perhaps I notice it within my belly, expansion of my abdomen. And letting go of any judgment. There's no expectation here. We're just bringing awareness to what is right now, the breathing in your own body in this moment, noticing its quality, noticing the shape of the breath. Is it constricted? Is it full? And just inviting this information into the moment that you're in right now as a way of befriending who you are. There's no expectation to show up any differently than yourself. And as you're noticing your breathing, you might notice other bodily sensations, perhaps your mind wandering, which your mind was made to do. And just notice that. And I invite us all to just take in some really intentionally deep breaths in through the nose, and then slowly exhaling through the mouth. Taking in another deep, rich inhale, and exhaling, and allowing that exhale to clear the lungs, to let go of anything you don't need to hold on to. Breathing in once more, taking in the sustenance of what you need. Slowly, gently, and kindly towards yourself, just letting it go. You're welcome, if your eyes are closed, to open them. And that was a very short practice of just being aware of your breath in your body.
Thank you for that, Karla. That was lovely. I think this is a really great opportunity to discuss like what mindfulness can be, right? I think that sometimes there's a belief or a conception that mindfulness is meditation, and certainly meditation and mindful meditation is an excellent way to practice and cultivate mindfulness.
Mm.
However, there's so many, many, many ways to cultivate a sense of calm, and you can do it almost anywhere, almost at any time. And so maybe we'll just talk through a few of those options. And um, Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Buddhist mindfulness practitioner, I love the way that he talks about mindfulness, and he talks often about those everyday mindful moments. And one of the ones that has always stuck with me and that I still do is mindfully washing your dishes. Like if you have a big pile of dirty dishes in your sink, that Thich Nhat Hanh and his book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, is amazing. It's a short read and it's got a bunch of great mindfulness practices at the end. But he just encourages you to very slowly and intentionally focusing on the present moment, pick up a dish, pay attention to the dish, treat that dish as a sacred object, wash it, pay attention to the feeling of soap on your hands, the weight of the dish, the temperature of the water, and
Mm.
be moving through your dishes in those moments. And so that's an example of just how a mindfulness practice can be cultivated in many different places in your life. So it might be hard to carve out 15 minutes to sit and try and meditate. Can also be really frustrating if you feel like your thoughts are constantly in encroaching, or you're having trouble turning back to focusing on your breath. So an opportunity is to just create mindfulness moments where you can. And so
Mm.
doing things in your normal day-to-day life and just trying to focus on just the one thing at a time instead of
Yes.
like listening to an audiobook while you're doing dishes. You're just not listening to anything, not watching anything, just doing your dishes.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I love that you said that, Caroline, especially bringing like an example like our dishes, right? Something that we might often do every day and something really easily when we're doing it to like kind of check out from like bringing our awareness to. So it really creates these moments to make these like ordinary moments of the day feel extraordinary. And when you say that, it makes me think of my children who they're 6 and 7, and you can just have these moments of like of just extreme joy for what we might consider small, but to them it's like they're just bringing their like full awareness to because it's something that they've maybe never seen or encountered before. So it's almost like having this like childlike sense to it, right? This like humility that like, oh, and I think even like the miracle of it, right? Like I get to do this. It's like not discounting what might be small or ordinary, but really those are like small miracles through the day.
Oh, that makes me think of one of my all-time favorite mindfulness practices, which is going on an awe walk, AWE, and cultivating a sense of awe. And like similar to having kids, like I have a dog, and so I walk my dog, and she is a great teacher of mindfulness because she will find a patch of ground and will sniff it for what feels like 20 minutes. I know it's probably only like one or two. But I just have to stop and be there with her. And so, and just to sort of, I'm getting ahead of myself, an awe walk, and actually there's some really cool research being done around the experience of awe or wonder as something that is very pro-social, that is very healing. And so an awe walk is where you go for a walk, and again, you're not listening to anything, you're just going for a walk.
Mm,
And what you're trying to do in those moments is look around you, look in your environment, whether it's something in your natural world like plants, nature, animals, or it's something that's in like a more human world, like seeing somebody like walk towards you or looking into or looking architecture of someone's house and cultivating that sense of awe, like finding
mm,
something about what you were looking at that sparks that sense of wonder of like, wow, I've
mm.
never looked at this way. Or how cool is it that there's lichen growing on, I'm looking at a tree out my window, that there's lichen growing on this tree and maybe has a symbiotic relationship with this organism. And so
Oh, I
that could
love
be just another way of practicing mindfulness, of just cultivating a sense of wonder of those everyday things.
definitely, definitely. Oh, I love that. I'm gonna have to do an all walk. I don't have a dog, but
Oh, you
taking an
don't need a
all walk.
dog. She's
Yeah,
just a good reminder to slow down because she will not be rushed.
right.
Yeah.
That also makes me think just in like the busyness, how we're kind of just sometimes we can just feel like, okay, the day is kind of one moment's kind of crashing into the other throughout the day. It makes me think about having even a practice around eating and our food, right? Some of us, especially when we're stressed, we might find ourselves like constantly eating throughout the day, like grazing, or maybe not even eating at all. So it can be helpful, right? If you want to find a moment to just bring it in intention to how you're nourishing your body with different sources of food, even like noticing how it smells, noticing the taste, the texture of it, even. Um, when I teach MBSR, I have everyone bring just a snack, like a small snack to the class, and we just spend time with like just one thing, like if it's a piece of popcorn or you know, um, one piece of granola, but it's really just bringing this like moment of intimacy with food. And that can be one way of like, okay, I'm just going to be intentional with what's on my plate and how I'm nourishing myself and noticing even when I feel full.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, we've got about 5 more minutes before we switch over to questions. Maybe we do another little mindfulness practice.
Yeah.
Since we made everybody grab paper and pencil, we'll do the one that I was thinking of for this. So yeah, go ahead and grab your writing implement and paper. And this is using DBT language. This is what we would call a mindfulness participate skill. So you are mindfully participating, which means you are focusing on just doing one thing at a time and paying attention to thoughts, emotions and judgments. And of course, if judgments come up, just notice it, let it go. We don't want to get into the practice of judging our judgments, but this practice can spark some judgment. So I just want to put a little extra note on that. So what you're going to do is with your writing utensil, you're actually going to put it in your non-dominant hand. So I'm a lefty, so I'm going to be drawing with my right hand. And then you're just going to pick an object in your environment, whether it's something that you can see in your own space or you're welcome to use something in mine or Carla's space. And you're going to just mindfully draw that object. And what I'm going to do so that we have a little bit of some time boundedness to this. I'm going to use, and I'm going to plug an app right now that is a great mindfulness tool. It's called Insight Timer. Insight Timer has just basic timers to help you practice if you just want to do a meditation practice, but it also has lots of great guided meditation. So I'm going to set a timer here. And we're just going to do this for about 3 minutes. So you're just going to practice drawing something in your environment with your non-dominant hand for 3 minutes, paying attention to any thoughts you have, any emotions, feelings, or judgments. Um, oh, I realized that I might not be able to. Oh, I can. Cool. That the Zoom is really good at tuning out the sound of bells. So I'm going to make sure that we can all hear my bell. And so you'll hear three bells to start and one bell to end. All right.
Thank you, Caroline, for this non-judgmental practice. I'm going to keep my drawing to myself, but it was helpful to notice thoughts about drawing an object with my non-dominant hand, and even my automatic thought of "oh no," and just noticing how that thought created this like feeling in me. Um, and but then it allowed me then to bring like this curiosity to the practice, and being a little less harsh with myself. So thank you.
Of course, yeah. One thing that I was that the thought that drifted into my head as we were practicing that is the concept of a beginner's mind, and that this is also a huge part of mindfulness, and that drawing with your non-dominant hand just really activates that beginner's mind because it feels so like, oh, I'm learning to seem it feels like I'm learning to draw all over again, and having to like focus in on how am I going to make this particular shape appear on my page. It can be a good mindful challenge.
Certainly one I could adopt more frequently. More frequently.
Happy to share my drawing. I drew my one of my plants on my desk.
It's nice.
I think this plant has been a subject of many mindfulness activities for me. All right, well, we've got some time to shift to questions. So we're going to open up our Q&A here. And yeah, I'll just read the first one, and then Carla, if you want to start us off, and we'll, we can go back and forth on who answers.
Yeah. So and thanks to those who put questions in the chat. So the first question is, are there any quick mindfulness practices that can help during a highly stressful moment? Great question. Yes. So thinking of right when we're when these like maybe more acute moments of stress, maybe you get a call from the doctor's office. Perhaps there was something happened while you're on the road, or maybe you witnessed something, right? Um, we can notice. I think that practice of being aware of your breathing is really, really important, right? So just noticing, am I even breathing? Like taking a moment just to pause within those moments of high stress, because when we're not our brains aren't getting that oxygen that we need, it can activate what's known as like our lizard brain. It's that part of the brain that's really based on like reactivity or impulsivity. And so finding just some ways to take in a few quality deep breaths in and out. If you're able to get that belly breathing, that actually activates part of the vagus nerve in the body, which is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So that helps you get closer to rest and digest, right? And really getting into more of that sense of calm and that centeredness in those high moments of stress. So I think the breath awareness practice can be so key and so important in moments that are very stressful, than just in everyday life too, just being aware.
Yeah, I just want to second that. I think that, and sometimes when you're in a very acute moment of stress, it can be hard to slow your breathing down. You might be like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be focusing on my breathing," and you might actually have a fairly high breath rate. So it
Mm-hmm.
can be really helpful to turn to a mindfulness app that has maybe a paced breathing tool where it has you inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6, and that will help you slow down your breathing a little bit to access that. Yeah, calm. Yeah. And I would also add there's also an exercise called paired or progressive muscle relaxation, where and this one requires a little bit of practice before you need it at an acute moment. But if you're anticipating some stress in your life, like getting this one, working it into your rotation can be very helpful. And I'm not going to give too much because I just want to be aware of our time. I'm not going to give too much direction around this, but if you just look up guided paired or progressive muscle relaxation meditation. There's a lot of really great one out there. YouTube has them. A lot of these apps will have them. So I'd recommend that one too. And the idea is that you're just tightening and squeezing your muscles. And then when you're releasing, you're sort of cueing your mind to just relax at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Caroline.
Yeah. All right. So we've got our next question. What are some mindfulness practices for parents and caregivers that you can recommend? Yeah, another really nice question. And I think that this one, um, just thinking about like one thing that immediately comes into my mind is that is what you were talking about, Karla, is just like just letting yourself join in on that those mindful moments with your kids when they're playing and just like putting aside your phone and just diving in with them to play. Like that can be um, helpful in so many reasons. It can help you feel calm and it can help you feel connected to your kids and can also promote a sense of mindfulness to just join in with them in their
Mhm.
play and just focusing on whatever it is that they're doing and doing it with them.
No, absolutely, absolutely, Caroline. Yeah, being like a full participant with your kids, and as we know, parenting or being a caregiver is not the easiest role, to be in every day because we're human too. Parents and caregivers, we have our own reactions, our own history, and so sometimes we don't always show up the way we want in our role as a parent, and we can easily get frustrated or upset about something. And so I think also embracing a practice of self compassion, no, just naming, right? I'm a human being too in this. There are moments where I'm going to make a mistake. Either I say something, I react a certain way, I'm going on an impulse that I have, right? So finding that space of compassion where I can sit with myself and my humanness. And if you need to, right, then go into an apology or just forgive yourself. Those can be supportive moments, just ongoing as a parent, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that self-compassion is such an important part of one of the benefits of mindfulness.
Mhm.
All right, I see one that I can answer real quick. Yeah, the Pomodoro. It's actually I might the Pomodoro technique, and I'm just gonna paste this link into the chat here. It's really just a timer that allows you to set amount how much you want to focus and then set how much you want to take a break. And it's just a little way to shift your mind into a state of focus. And so it can be really helpful. I still use it. I don't necessarily use the specific Pomodoro timer that's on the internet, but I do sometimes set myself a 20-minute timer. I'm like, I'm going to just focus on my one task for 20 minutes and then I'll take a little break, get up, walk around. So that's what that technique is. And I think there's some interesting research out there about it. So I'll put that in I'll answer that one for everyone.
Caroline. I do see a question here. Oh, you already took care of it. Okay. There is a question on how can mindfulness help in creating healthier relationships? And so I think that's a really important question, um, because mindfulness, it's creating this. It can create this own like internal self-awareness, um, and when we focus inwardly, then that can be a way of then projecting that outwardly in many aspects too. So it's a practice that I can start within and then bridge outward. And so when you think about healthy relationships, I think it's important also to start with just the relationship you share with yourself, right? So thinking about how you maybe care for your mind, how you care for your body, how you care for your thoughts and feelings, that bridge of compassion for yourself is going to create an equal bridge on the other end to maybe just people who live in the house that you share with, so a neighbor across the street, if you're taking your kids to school, it can start within and then go with outward. And so starting at home, I would say, and then having some of that, I think when we treat ourselves again with that compassion or loving kindness, you know, it's it can also show up then verbally in how we're expressing gratitude, showing appreciation to others, maybe forgiving others too. And then even in relationships where there might be tension or conflict, how do I want to mindfully respond, in this moment with this individual? If it's someone at work, maybe someone who I have a long history of difficulties with, right? I can still find maybe that sense of calm or groundedness so I'm not going on some of those impulses that I might feel around this person, and I can stay in alignment with who I am and what my values are.
Oh, I love that. And Karla, you mentioned a few times the loving kindness, and there's actually a specific loving kindness meditation or
Mm.
script again that you can find. There's lots of resources on it, but we didn't get to it today, but I do have the script in front of me, and part of it is like bring to mind an image of someone you don't really know or who are you're struggling with. And then you actually practice, may this person be at ease. May they be content with their life. May they be joyful. May they feel safe and secure. So you actually, in the loving kindness meditation, you can actually hold loving and compassionate space for somebody who you might have some tension with, who maybe sometimes you experience some frustration around, and it can help cultivate that sense of
Mhm.
yeah of kindness towards
Mhm.
that person. So highly recommend that one as well. And I actually think that I'm seeing some questions. I think that might be a really nice one for if you're caring for if you're caring for an elder individual, if you are a caregiver, like doing that loving kindness meditation for yourself, for that person who you are caring for, that can be really helpful. Or for somebody who you see struggling and maybe are having those emotion outbursts, uncontrolled outbursts, like you practicing that loving kindness meditation again can have an impact where it impacts your social signaling towards that person, and that can have this profound impact on that
Mhm.
relationship. And I would
Absolutely.
also add one last piece on this. There's another thing that you can do around this is to have a place in your home, or it could be a place outside, really anywhere that is the place that you go to have warm or kind thoughts about that person. So it can
Mm.
actually put you in a state of mind to think kindly or neutrally about that person, especially if you're having difficulties with conflict with that person or that relationship feels very tense. And that will, stepping into that place or having that certain place for it will help you shift into that frame of mind as well. Because I
Mhm.
totally get it. Sometimes it can be quite hard to do that.
Mhm. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Karla, anyone that you're seeing that pops out that you feel like would be that you'd like to answer?
Let's see here. Um, so I'm seeing a question here about talking a little bit more or reiterating about the science of mindfulness and how that helps with chronic pain. So I can touch on this, and there is a lot of different journals out there or articles available online if you'd like to research. But this really started in the late 70s with John Kabat-Zinn, who was doing research at the University of Massachusetts. And so he developed this 8-week MBSR program that includes formal mindfulness practice. And I think today, Caroline and I have been mentioning a lot of ways of practicing informally just throughout the day. But when you're shifting into more of a formal practice, you're creating a dedicated space and time, typically about 45 minutes, 6 out of 7 days of the week to engage in formal body scans. So it's a guided meditation to notice physical sensations in your body, and automatic thoughts that you might have about areas of your body as well. So doing that for a period of time with patients or with clients, for one, it increases your own emotion regulation, and it also supports you in noticing the automatic thoughts you're having towards yourself and the relationship you might share with this part of you, right? And so, in noticing that, right, that's like a first step. But how you respond, like, how do I want to respond to this part of me that maybe I've had a history of pain and trying to manage that pain? And the how is really the key here. I can respond either very harshly in some ways or with a great deal of frustration, kind of like this fighting against myself, this maybe why or why not language. Or I can maybe integrate this compassion, and as we've been saying, loving kindness. Those that language, that internal dialogue we use is so meaningful. But that body scan practice, that's something that's done over the 8 weeks of the MBSR program, and really can support someone in creating that sense of groundedness and just being aware of those those sensations that they might describe as pain, right? And when you think about pain, I know we're almost out of time, but when you think about pain, it's really just a signal, right? This is a signal to your body and how you respond to that signal. So kind of thinking of it in that way. So, but happy to share more information about that if that's helpful at all.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And it makes me think too of just like how we can get into those cycles around sleep too. Like that
Mhm.
when we're having difficulty sleeping, we tend to have a lot of stressed or negative thoughts about our own difficulty sleeping, and that actually can make the difficulty sleeping worse, and that can have these very reinforcing cycles.
Mhm.
So just validating how hard it can be to break out of that.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. Well, it looks like we are right at the end of our time.
Yeah.
Karla, thank you so much for doing this. And
Thank
it was
you,
such
Caroline.
a delight to just chat with you. I feel like I could talk about this for another hour.
I
So I
know.
just appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. And same to you for your guidance, for your presence, and for those who have been able to join. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. So,
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And yeah, feel free to, I think we're going to be sending out a list of resources. So would love to send that along. And you can visit the Family Institute's website if you're curious about any of our other programs. There's all kinds of good stuff happening related to mindfulness and just related to mental health in general. So yeah, happy to hear from you at any time.
thank
All right.
you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.